Hey guys, another week, another game dev vlog, and this week has been an interesting one for Rotate. Now, I did not make as much visible progress as I would have liked, but I did make some progress in that I've changed my approach to the way I'm designing levels. Alright, so in the last video, I believe I mentioned that I was working on new levels and revising some of the older ones that I had rushed. Well, it wasn't just that I had rushed the levels and made them too quickly or anything. It was that I missed the whole point of the levels to begin with. And I've been watching some videos this week, particularly one guy's stuff that I'll probably go ahead and link down in the description, but it's really got me thinking about the way that I'm even approaching the level design to begin with. And I'm trying to really emphasize the core features of the game. Like, a lot of the old levels were too much about precision platforming and such, which is obviously not the core concept of rotation. So the newer levels that I'm working on, and even some revisions of ones I did last week, I've gone through and made them really emphasize the core mechanics of the game. And now I think it's starting to come together better. I'm also changing my approach to working on the story a little bit, and I think it's really starting to take form. Now, some of the other stuff I did this week was I also worked a little bit more on the new Frost Engine version, mostly to do with masking and such, and then even just last night I had to go back and rewrite some of what I had done because I realized it was actually quite broken and didn't really work in most cases. Now, something else I did do this week was I experimented a bit more with the different options for coding in JavaScript. Like recently, especially with Rotate and all that, I've been using Haxe as a tool to make coding in JavaScript a lot easier and a lot more familiar, but I had certain questions about why I was using it to begin with, and as to whether or not it was the best choice. Especially, it has a couple of quirks, mostly in that there's no true private scoping, it's all protected, as it's called in most other languages that I've worked with. But really, I wanted to just explore what other options there were and find out if this was the best choice. So I really took a step back and looked at, okay, why am I not using raw JavaScript to begin with? And I actually decided the best way to figure that out was to try coding something with raw JavaScript. And I realized why I've not been using it is that it's not an inherently bad platform or anything, it's just that it's very different from what I'm used to using, so it's hard to be as productive as I can be with a structure that I'm not so familiar with. Now, that's not the biggest issue there. With JavaScript, there's also some particular quirks that are a lot more frustrating to work with than the quirks of Haxe, and really I found that even when I was working with the raw code, I couldn't really make it any more compact than what Haxe was creating for my game. So overall, I'm quite happy with the way that Haxe compresses its code down into JavaScript. Now, of course, Haxe isn't the only solution to being able to code in a different platform and transpile to JavaScript. There's also a tool called TypeScript, which is essentially meant to be a subset of JavaScript in that any JavaScript code is valid TypeScript code. Essentially, one of the biggest things that it adds to JavaScript is, as the name implies, types, which is of course one of the benefits of using a platform like TypeScript or Haxe, is that you can have strict typing, makes things a whole lot easier to code with. Also, some of the other stuff that TypeScript does is it moves a lot of the features in newer standards of JavaScript back into older ones that other browsers can actually support. Now, while TypeScript sounds great, I had a lot of trouble trying to figure out how to actually use it. And that even the process of creating the project and maintaining it is just, it's a lot more convoluted and there's a lot more to it than what I'm used to having to work with. And again, gets back to that productivity issue. And that I'm obviously the most productive working in the structure that I'm most used to, have the most experience with. And that structure was something I learned from mostly ActionScript 3. And I got fairly proficient with it, and that's why I've been using Haxe, is because it offers a very, very similar structure. Not to mention the fact that there's Haxe Develop, which was a branch of Flash Develop, which was the tool that I used to code in Flash. So overall, I'm using a very familiar structure, which is why I've been able to code Rotate very easily and not have to worry about the structure of everything. Working with Haxe is probably the best choice for me for now, because the only issues I have with the Haxe export to JavaScript is really just a few issues with the way that Haxe is designed. And of course, the reason why Haxe doesn't allow for proper private scoping is because Haxe is a multi-platform tool. It's not just something like TypeScript that's just for JavaScript. Haxe can export to a bunch of different platforms, meaning that it tries to mimic the same functionality on every single platform. And of course, there are certain ones that would be really difficult for them to implement any sort of private scoping, so they just decided that it would be best to just not allow it on any of the platforms. And really, I can work around the small quirks like that. I'd much rather get the benefits of working with the platform that I'm more familiar with and have to deal with a few small quirks than work with a platform that I'm not really familiar with at all that will, again, have its own quirks. But anyway, that is going to have to be it for today. So if you enjoyed this video, maybe you learned something, be sure to leave a like, maybe a comment, and definitely subscribe for more content from me in the near future. So yeah, I'll see you around. Bye.